Good evening, YouTube. This is a difference. Normally, you see me come up on here, and I'm by myself. But today, I'm trying something different. I brought my brother along. He and I like movies just as much, and usually we talk and speculate about movies together. Recently, we both watched the movie Lights Out. Now, after having viewed the movie a couple times, I'm under the impression that the movie isn't about ghosts and it's not about what we can't see, which is scary. I mean, that's one of the principles that makes the movie very frightening. But I'm under the impression that the mom in the movie Lights Out was the actual monster and that the ghost didn't ever exist at all. I think that it has to do with schizophrenia and that she actually was the ghost herself, the mother, that being. My brother has a different take. What is your take?
Well, here's the issue. The fact that you actually had to watch it several times in order to get enough ammo to be like, no, it's definitely this. It has to be this. That's the issue right there. If something is meant to be that apparent, you should see it on the first watch and be able to see that, no, it is not about the brain and schizophrenia. It is about a fucked up girl that was locked up because she killed her daddy. Because her daddy locked her in a basement.
No.
No. This is true. You can say no. And because you had to watch it like 3 times. I got this on the first take. First take. Perfection. Okay. No soup for you.
But I get that. But under the first take, you're just taking everything in. And it's so overwhelming that you don't see all the little things.
It was not overwhelming. It was scary as fuck.
Yeah, and I'm not saying it's not scary and it's not frightening. And schizophrenia in a homicidal sense is frightening. I'm just saying that you never see the two at the same time. And because
the lights were on.
But the apparition disappears once she shoots herself.
Yes, because after the physical body died, she was latched onto her only friend in life, who she met in a psychiatric ward.
But then, okay, that's a valid point. But why then does she not show up after and latch onto the kids who've had an equal exposure after the fact?
Reason being is because the kids did not have any sort of attachment to her. When the girl who had the issues before she died met the other girl who already had issues, who was already weakened, who was already medicated, when she met her at a young age, they latched on, they were the only friends. I think, if anything, once the girl who was the murderer died in her physical form, latched on to the girl who had the issues, who was taking the medication, was only able to be in her because she had an immune deficiency. She had a need for that girl who she met in the sane asylum to always be there as a comfort blankie, to be like, oh, well, see, I am normal. It's like the people who keep the friends around that are a little fucked up, just so that every now and then they can be like, I'm normal. I'm normal, right?
Okay, so that's fair. But my argument would be that when she was young and she was in an insane asylum, she witnessed that her friend died under shock therapy. And so she was traumatized by being in an insane asylum. And then she was re-traumatized by the fact that her friend died. And so to keep her alive, she built the personality of her friend and kept her alive in her. And so, yeah, that person was messed up to begin with, but the trauma of losing that friend caused her to have a schism wherein she tried to keep her alive by building that personality in herself and carried it on. And when she stopped taking her medication, that's when her friend shows up. That's my other point, is that the split personality tries to keep her from taking her own medication. If it was an apparition, why would it need her to not take her medication for schizophrenia?
Well, there's a lot of reasons to go around that. I mean, first of all, in the video, most of the people who die, lights off, lights on, lights off, lights on, unless she had some sort of mental powers where she was traveling over there and trying to keep her friend alive that died while she was in the mental institute. Unless you get into that where she actually has powers, where she's enforcing her will upon the world, it's not possible because they physically show lights on, nothing there. Lights out, stuff is there, right? So unless she's physically able to, mentally and physically be able to do that, then it's not even plausible. Also, prior to the little girl dying in the institute, her father damaged her, put her in the basement, and she had to reach out with her mental capacity. So at which point, that girl that was already messed up had to actually be able to develop certain skills or had certain powers or was so mentally broken that she had to be able to be like, well, when he dies, her father, who'd put her in the basement and tortured her, he committed suicide, or I don't know, they didn't explain it really well, but he wrote in his own blood, "She's in my head, make it go away," right? Why else would they have done that?
Okay. So here's my explanation for that. I think that her father suffered from some sort of... most times, mental illness is hereditary. So I think her father suffered some mental illness himself. And that he was feeling guilty for the things he was doing to his own daughter. That's point one. Point two is the fact that when we deal with our family, especially, we like to make excuses for them. And so, is it, in a way, we might be more likely to go along and make excuses for our family and to enable their delusions and thus buy into them ourselves. Because what's more likely is there an apparition haunting us? Or do we want to believe that there's an apparition haunting us so that we don't have to face the fact that our mom, our daughter, our sister, our friend is crazy? And so you talked about the idea that, she clearly had to have had powers. Well, not necessarily, because she might have just been, once her personality switched, she might have been, and I can't think of the name of the girl. What's the name? Do you remember her name?
No.
Well, it doesn't matter. The point is that she was...
this is why you do this right after you watch
right
the
after
movie.
you watch the movie and not weeks later.
Inebriated as well. Not apple juice, mother.
We didn't have juice, we just had the beer. I can't remember the name of the ghost.
Either which way, another thing to point out, the fact that I'm right and you are wrong, because I'm clearly always right, is the fact that the kid says to mom, "Hey, if I come back to the house, and like you said, you'll spend some quality time with me, and it'll be just you and me." Generally, from what I've ever seen, mental episodes, multiple personality, usually both personalities aren't present at the same time. So when the kid says, "Honestly, I just want to watch a movie, just you and me, Mom," and she's like, "Are you sure?" Because, she's lonely and she wants to be with us too. Most people, even with multi-personalities, don't know they have a multi-personality, so they don't actually know to include that person.
Yeah, okay. And that's also a fair point. But I would argue that if it was like in the case of where she was, like I argued, that she was trying to keep her dead friend alive, and it was kind of like an imaginary friend, and she was keeping him alive, because the mother talks about her in a present tense and talks about her like this, that because she talks about it that way, the children respond to it that way. Do you know what I'm saying? The boy realizes that the mom sees this person and acknowledges that person. So to placate her, he also does that. So he's saying, "Listen, Mom, I want to be with you because I love you, but I don't want to be around this person. So could that person be tucked away for now? So in essence, he's saying, like, have you taken your medication? Because when you don't take your medication, she's around. So that's his polite way of saying, are you on your meds?
True. However, the boy aside, you talk about the daughter who is now grown up, who has moved on, who has put these memories into her past because she doesn't want to remember it because her mom's batshit crazy and she had a weird bringing up. She comes back into their lives, and suddenly, as the son is pulled away, the ghost starts going after her, as well as the son who's staying with her. If it was just the mother, and the mother was the issue, I don't think that would be the case. I think if anything, she would be happy in her own with herself in that house. But that does lead to believe that if you are right, that it makes the apparition more active towards both of them when they're out of the house because the mother's unsettled and that the mother wants them all back. But it still doesn't pan out from everything that I've seen.
So you're talking about the scene where she's freaking out because the apparition is carving into her floor, right? That's what you're thinking of. I would say that then is the fact that, because as I mentioned, mental illnesses tend to be hereditary. And so she probably also is having to face the fact that she has a mental illness.
So you think that she thinks that the mom's crazy and therefore the crazy's coming out in her. So she tries to justify it even though she's a little bit crazy and starts carving shit in her floor or seeing stuff being carved into her floor.
Essentially, yes.
It's still a ghost.
No, I'm just saying that this movie is taking something. Okay, what I'm saying is that this movie is using a ghost story to tackle a greater issue.
But it is a ghost.
Yeah, for intents and purposes of the story, I think it's using the ghost as a metaphor. No,
but it is
not a ghost.
It's using a ghost, therefore it is a ghost?
Well, because it's using things like the dark as which everybody, whether you admit it or not, I don't care. You're walking to your house in the dark of night and nobody's around. That last 10 feet, you run. You run to your door. Why? We don't know. It's just like a fight or flight instinct to run to that door because you're afraid of the darkness around you. And so this movie plays on that. It is tackling mental illness and using ghost stories, and the dark, which we're all afraid of, as a tool to tackle a greater issue. And so I'm saying that visually, yes, it's a ghost, but the subtext implies that it's mental illness and that she's crazy.
No, you're just trying to say that that there's a hidden moral of the story and so on. But I think that the reality it is it's a ghost. I don't have any more to say about that. It's just a ghost.
But what's scarier? Is it scarier to say that it's a ghost that's inexplicable and untangible, or that someone you love, you have to witness them break down, become another person, become malevolent, and be willing to kill her husbands? Because it implies that not only did she kill her current husband, but her previous husband vanished. So that implies that he died, because the ghost says, do you want me to show you where I put your father? Now, if that's the mother talking to them as her second personality, basically she's saying, I killed your dad. Do you want me to make you join them? But she loves her children and she doesn't want to hurt her own children. So rather than hurt her own children, she kills herself. And then her daughter recognizes that she probably has a problem too. And so she would realize that she also has delusions.
I'm just saying, if it was the mother all along, then she was a fucking ninja. Suddenly, lights out, she's there. Lights on, she's in the rafters hunting her husband. I don't know.
No, but I think that that's a tool. I don't think that that's that. I think what it is people are seeing what they want to see. And that the dark is scary. And the dark isn't real. The dark is just a metaphor for the mental illness, for what they don't understand. And so, as they're unraveling these ideas, then the mother, the second personality, is perceiving them as a threat. Now, as a husband, her husbands are, as much as she loves them, they're not as important to her as her own children. So it's not until her own children come about and become in danger themselves that she decides that it's not worth sticking around and putting them in danger.
And or it's a ghost and she realizes that her ghost is actually a bad person and kills herself so that the ghost goes away too.
But then if that's the case, there's no guarantee that the ghost is going to go away.
Well, there's no guarantee about that. She is fucked in the head. She is on meds already. But the ghost only survived because they attached to each other when they were both undergoing special treatments in an insane asylum. I mean, the little girl was real all along. And lived up to be a young teen before she died. She only kept staying around because she was connected to her only friend in life. Which still leads me to believe that it was just an emotional strength and emotional power through all her turmoil just to stay around to protect her friend. She saw the husbands, the boyfriends as threats. Even in the flashbacks from what I saw of the daughter when she was younger, she was never necessarily mean to the daughter. She's never gone out of her way to hurt the kids until later on when she thinks that she might lose the mother who she's connected to over the kids. At which point the mother has to make the choice of ultimate sacrifice for her children.
All right, YouTube. We've each pleaded our case. I think that it's personal, that it's a case of schizophrenia, and that the movie is a metaphor for tackling mental illness as a whole. My brother Ryan thinks it's just a ghost. It's just a ghost.
It's what's right, you know.
Either way, the movie is frightening to watch. It's based on a short film. I will include a link to the short film that the movie was based on below.
And you know what? I only watched it because he pulled the birthday card.
Yeah, he doesn't like watching scary movies at all. He's actually a fraidy cat. But you will agree it was worth watching.
So long as I'm right.
All right. Either way, this movie scored highly on Rotten Tomatoes. And the reason for it is I think because it allows you, one, it's fresh and frightening. And it's frightening in a way that isn't like, Paranormal Activity? Those movies are garbage. Those are not frightening movies. It brings horror back to horror and re-examines what's frightening, what the actual human psyche finds frightening. And the fact that it's ambiguous and that we can have a discussion and argument like this is what makes it a strong movie. Anyways, let us know what you thought about Lights Out in the comments below. If you think that I'm right, give this movie a thumbs up. If you think that my brother's right, give this movie a thumbs up.
Whoa.
Remember, comment below, subscribe. It's free. It doesn't cost you anything. You know what it does? It lets you see more videos like this. Thank you. Have a good evening.